Raymond, I have a question for you.
Shoot.
Okay, so if we pray that the 49ers beat the Saints, do the Saints have the ability to intercept that prayer? Because they're the Saints?
If it's a done deal, then clearly, I'd like to thank God for this win, like you're supposed to. That's what I would like to say. If the Saints intercept it, then I don't know. That to me doesn't seem seems a little blasphemous if they were to intercept a prayer in my book.
This is the GoldCast.
Boom! Welcome to another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
Yeah, buddy. All right, Raymond, it is here, Preview Thursday. We are previewing the 49ers and the Saints. This is officially the fifth game in the gauntlet. Luckily, we are almost done with the gauntlet, but there's still plenty of tough games ahead, but we're almost done with the gauntlet. But this was supposed to be one of the breakout games. In my brain, we had already smoked the Packers for the billionth time, and now we were going against the Saints for the big rematch from what I believe was the best regular season game from last year. But boy, what a difference a year makes. This is not your daddy's 49ers, and we basically are coming in limping with a depleted team. And so here we are, and this is looking to be tough. So let's start going over the lines, Raymond. Let's go over what we got here. So right now, the spread has the San Francisco as 9.5-point underdogs.
Ouch.
9.5. New Orleans minus 9.5. San Francisco plus 9.5. The total over-under is set at 49.5. All right. And here's just some stats for you. Okay. San Francisco is averaging 25 points per game this season, ranked 18th in the NFL. Ouch. We're surrendering 23 points per game this season, ranked 10th in the NFL. New Orleans is averaging 30.5 points per game this season, 4th in the NFL. And New Orleans is surrendering 25 points per game this season, 14th in the NFL. So we average about exactly what they surrender. They average about 7 points over what our defense allows. Somebody's going to be right and somebody's going to be wrong, and someone's going to win and someone's going to lose. But there we go, Raymond. That is kind of our basic outlook. And why don't you go to that ever-widening injury report that we get to experience every
Oh, my God.
week.
It's a moving target. So we know that Tevin Coleman didn't practice yesterday or Thursday. I'm pretty sure he's out. So fantasy people, pick up Jerick McKinnon if you can. River Craft, a wide receiver. Never heard of this guy. He was probably packing groceries a week ago. Quadricep limited yesterday, Wednesday, did not participate Thursday. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, another who the hell is this? Linebacker, hamstring, didn't participate yesterday or today. So even the guys we're bringing in from the street are winding up on the injury report. Deebo Samuel did not practice Wednesday or Thursday, so he most likely will be out this Sunday. Trent Taylor did not participate in Wednesday, but he was a full participant today, so that's good news. Today is Thursday, time of this recording. And he was dealing with back issues, the injury that's been bothering him his career thus far. So not a good sign to see it still bothering him. It just feels like he's really not fully recovered from that. I think next year will be a better season for him to kind of get back to the Trent Taylor we saw in his rookie campaign. But at least he'll be a full participant most likely on Sunday because we need all the hands we can get, all hands on deck kind of a scenario. Kawan Williams dealing with that high ankle sprain. The Niners are actually debating as to whether to shut him down. If they put him on IR, he's done for the season because he's already been on IR and come back. You cannot do that twice in a single season per NFL rules. So he did not participate yesterday or today and is most likely going to find himself on IR unless for some miraculous reason he is able to overcome the high ankle sprain. But we all know what that did to Jimmy Garoppolo although Kawhi Williams is a little bit more durable than him. On the New Orleans sides, we have Eric McCoy, the plays center and guard for them, dealing with an elbow injury. He was limited yesterday and today. We have Drew Brees dealing with a right shoulder injury. He was limited yesterday and today, will most likely play on Sunday. Ryan Ramczyk, he was a tackle, dealing with back injuries, limited yesterday and today. Michael Thomas, been dealing with ankle, hamstring, he even punched a guy at one point in the season and missed a game.
also violence. He's dealing with violence.
Limited in practice yesterday and Thursday. Dwayne Washington, running back. What does it matter? Kamara's going to get all the touches anyways, dealing with a back injury. He was limited today as well. So the big ones there are obviously Drew Brees, Michael Thomas. Pretty sure Michael Thomas is going to play. He's been banged up all season long, so not sure what version of Michael Thomas we're going to get. He'll be one more week removed from the injury he was dealing with last week. He was a factor in the game in their contest last Sunday, but I'm not sure if he's fully recovered. Either way, who knows? Maybe he gets into another fist fight and misses the game. Drew Brees, right shoulder injury, and he throws with his right arm, so that's not a good sign for him. I'm curious to see how that will affect his play in live action. We'll have to see how that goes if the defense can get on him. But if you want more details on the Saints team and their injury report and how they will fare against the 49ers, you're going to have to go to the Who Dat Cast to get all those details.
You're going to have to go to the best regular season team lose in a strange fluky way in the in the postseason Saints cast. You're going to have to go to that cast.
Yes. They literally call it that. That's the name of the cast.
That's the entire name of the cast. You're going to have to go there. Raymond, this is one of those games that if we win it, it's going to be by just Kyle Shanahan, Robert Saleh, like super out coaching.
This is a coach's win type of game.
Yeah.
Coaches have to scheme our way to victory this time.
Absolutely. And Vegas does not believe in us. 9.5-point favorites in favor of the New Orleans Saints, in favor of the best regular season team, lose in a fluky way in the postseason cast. Saints cast, it's a long one. So I don't really know. Let me just ask you, where are we at? I mean, what do you think? What do you think happens?
Defensively, there's matchup problems across the board. The only one that gives us some sort of semblance is, Jason Verrett. Jason Verrett's been playing excellent. Maybe he'll be able to take out one of these wide receivers, whether it's Emmanuel Sanders, who he's familiar with. If he lines up against Michael Thomas, it's probably going to be it's a ginormous mismatch. Emmanuel Mosley, I don't think matches up well with Michael Thomas at all. Fred Warner, maybe he'll be able to deal with Alvin Kamara, but if he's not dealing with him, you might have Cooks, the tight end. But Cooks, the tight end, he's soft. He's a soft player. He got knocked out of the game last year after catching 2 touchdowns, but he wasn't able to do much after that because he got a concussion. He was done for the day, but it cost us a penalty. But to me, there's mismatches between the Saints and our backup players across the board. So you're damned if you do, no matter how you slice it here. Offensively, we're just missing too many weapons. This is the top third ranked defense overall. So, it's going to come down to scheme. Can Kyle Shanahan scheme his way around this defense, and can those players that we're working with, the limited amount, Richie James, Brandon Ayuk, Jerick McKinnon, those are the 3 horses we're going to be watching. Maybe a little bit of Ross Dwelly, too, because we know he can catch, too. Those are kind of the 4 players I'm looking at. Also some Jordan Reed. If Jordan Reed is able to get back in action, he's good for 1 or 2 plays, and then he'll be injured back on the the sidelines again. But for those 1-2 dynamic plays we'll get out of him, maybe we'll get a touchdown. So there's about 4 or 5 players on offense that can really help us move, keep up with the Saints. But I feel like we're going to be playing from behind. Running game, we're going to try to establish the running game, but it's really going to be a passing attack. Mullins is going to have to air it out in order to keep up with the Saints, because I just think defensively we're not going to be able to stop them. I'd love to be wrong and have some kind of fluke trap game go against the Saints, but I don't see that happening.
I don't either. What say you? What do you think the final score of this game is? I'm almost dreading this answer. This is the least fun I've ever had asking this question from you this season.
I think this is 35-24 Saints.
You're not going to like my answer.
Yours is 45-24 Saints.
I'll go with your 35. I'm gonna go 35-17 in favor of the Saints.
I don't know. The Niners are really good at putting up some big garbage time numbers, and Coach Shanahan can really kind of get things moving when the defense, when the game
when all the starters go sit down. And
when the backups come in there.
Versus our backups.
Yeah.
Well, there it is.
This is rough. I take no pleasure in this preview episode, GoldCast Nation. Just keep that in mind.
Absolutely. I don't think we can get to our defensive wine bottle segment fast enough this week. What say you, GoldCast Nation? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast and let us know down below who you think's going to win and by how much. And if you need a tissue, let me know. I will Amazon it to you. Obviously, social distance, I can't get close to you, but I can definitely Amazon you some tissue paper. And we will be back on this segment next Monday for the recap episode and our bye week. I incorrectly had said earlier it was our bye. I actually thought it was because we didn't play Sunday. I got confused. It's just 2020. That's supposed to play in 2020, and we're clearly not in a bye. We're obviously playing this week, but next week we are officially on a bye, so we'll discuss it more then. And so now on to our 49ers defense wine bottle team. Candlestick Will is joining us next. Yes. All
Love
right.
it.
We are back for our wine bottle team. This is part 2. We did the offense on Monday night, and here we are on Thursday night, here to deliver the defense. And these players across the board, I've always kind of preferred defense over offense, just in general. I love the hard hits. I love great defensive battles. So this is going to be very fun. We are starting off. Who's going first? Who's doing the D-line?
That would be me.
Awesome. Candlestick Will, it's all you, buddy. Let's take it away.
All right, well, we're starting up front, which is the right place to start. And when you talk about defensive tackles in the last 40 years, you've got to start in the late 90s with Bryant Young and Dana Stubblefield. The wine bottle years for them are 1996 for Bryant Young and 1997 for Dana Stubblefield. Two of the best we've ever had, two of the best of all time. And when you look at those two guys, the fact that they played next to each other together, we really, needed to appreciate at that time how good they really were. And then when you look on the ends, you've got Justin Smith. His 2011 season was phenomenal. As probably the best right end we've seen in recent years, especially. Shout out to Fred Dean. His 1983 was a pretty epic season, but he didn't quite match Justin Smith's performance in 2011 for me. But shout out to Fred Dean, rest in peace. One of the 250,000 Americans that have died from COVID. So we just want to give him a shout out and maybe dedicate the episode to him as well. And then on the other end, we've got the guy from last year, rookie, one of the best rookies in 49er history, maybe as good as they've ever had, Nick Bosa from 2019 as the left end. And it really is pretty impressive. The Super Bowl team in 2019, their defensive line across the board with Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner, Nick Bosa. I mean, they had some of the best performances the Niners have ever seen. And both Armstead and Buckner could have easily been on this team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Raymond, your turn. Let's move over to the linebackers, baby. The big guns.
My personal favorite position on the defensive side, like you, Rudy, I'm also a big fan of defense. I like to watch defensive play over offensive play, but there's nothing definitely more exhilarating than watching a big touchdown throw or a big touchdown run. With that said, though, let's get to the edge rushers for the linebacking core, and that starts with Charles Haley. Man, what an amazing player. And we chose the 1990 season, which was an all-pro season for Charles Haley. He had 16 sacks, 58 combined tackles, which for that time was actually phenomenal, especially for an edge rusher like that. The tackle side, typically the inside linebackers are the ones that are going to be racking up a lot of the tackles on the stat sheets, but the edge guys are your sack men, and Charles Haley was one of the best in the business. He had multiple double-digit sack seasons with the 49ers and the Dallas Cowboys, but no season was better than his 1990 performance. Moving on to the inside, I'm pretty sure a lot of you can guess as to who at least one of these inside stars will be on the wine bottle team. And it is none other than the player that I actually own a jersey for because he's my favorite linebacker, one of my favorites of all time. I'm also a big Kevin Green and Greg Lloyd fan from the 90s Pittsburgh team. But it was number 52, Patrick Willis. We chose the 2009 campaign, which was also an all-pro season for Patrick Willis, although he had 5 all-pro appearances throughout his career, 7 straight Pro Bowl appearances. And in this particular season, he actually had, He had 3 picks. He had 4 sacks, 152 combined tackles, 114 solo tackles, 38 assists, and 13 TFLs to go along with 11 quarterback hits when he was called upon to rush the passer. So just a phenomenal speed, phenomenal athleticism. The really amazing thing about Patrick Willis was he could defend against the run and the pass. He had enough speed and that amazing, phenomenal size of his to run with wide receivers and tight ends. He was just really good all around from day one up until the last season before his retirement because he had a really bad turf toe that forced him out of the game. Otherwise, he would have played probably another 3-4 years. Moving on to his co-partner on the inside game. Some of you may think this is a surprise, but I don't find it to be a surprise at all. It was the one player that he played alongside with, number 53, Navarro Bowman. We chose the 2011 campaign for this wine bottle position. Another all-pro performance for that year for Navarro Bowman, although he had 3 other all-pro performances to go along after this season. And he had, he started all 16 games. He had 2 sacks, 143 tackles, and 111 solo tackles to go along with 32 assists, 13 TFLs, and 6 quarterback hits. He had some pretty good seasons in addition to this, but we really felt this one kind of stood out. I mean, you could argue the 2013 season too, because he also had a couple picks during that year. But I think 2011 was again one of those. 2011 through 2013 were all NFC Championship runs, and Navarro Bowman just really kind of balled out in all 3 of these seasons. So you really can't go wrong with either one of these picks, in my opinion. But 2011 is where we settled. And on the right side edge, that's at least that's where he played most of the time. But on the right side edge is, of course, the controversial but phenomenal natural athleticism that we saw in the very short stint from Aldon Smith. And that was number 99. We chose the 2011 season, even though his rookie campaign was really impressive. I'm kind of surprised he wasn't picked for the Pro Bowl because he had 14 sacks in his rookie season. But 2012 was again another Pro Bowl all-pro season for Aldon Smith, and he racked up 19 and a half sacks. That is among some of the best that have ever done it all time. I think 22 sacks is the record held by what's his name? Strahan from the Giants. He had 66 combined tackles that year, also 50 solo tackles, 16 assists, 18 TFLs that season to go along with 29 quarterback hits. Just an absolute game wrecker, Aldon Smith was. Even had a pick that season as well. Just a tremendous season from a tremendous player who's actually finally back in the league this season with the dismal Dallas Cowboys defense. He has 5 sacks on the year, though, so if he keeps it up, maybe he has 9 quarterback hits and 3 TFLs to go along. So shout out to his 2020 campaign. At least he's back, and he's in a better place, it seems, so good for him. But we settled on the 2012 season because how can you go wrong with 19 and a half sacks? I mean, you're just a few shy from the record. So, and that was just in his second season. Had he really kind of kept a better level head in his off the field problems, I mean, this guy could have really dominated the record books easily in the sack category alone, let alone TFLs and some of those other stats. So unfortunate, but he is back in the season, so good for him. But that is the linebacker core out of me. So just some tough company out there in the middle section of the field.
What I find really interesting is that 3 of those guys all played for Harbaugh and Fangio. 3 of them. 3 of those dudes were all from one era, but that defense, the 2019 defense was pretty monstrous, and but I don't know. What would you guys say that Harbaugh Fangio defense was tougher than the 2019 defense, Ray? What do you think so far? Just this, like, I know we're not done. We're not quite done yet. But since those 3 guys kind of really encapsulate an era, which defense? Here's a fun question. Let's go all 3. Well, I'll save it for the end. But who would you say right now, just off of this first one, 2019 or like 2012? Who would you go with, Ray? Who's tougher?
It has to be 2012.
Yeah, I'm just picking from those.
Oh, because we went to the Super Bowl that year. Yeah. It's, in terms of Pro Bowlers, the Vic Fangio defense by far and away had way more of those components voted to the All-Star game. 2019 did not. It had a few, but I just felt like statistically 2019 was better, but overall talent 2012 by a mile.
Candlestick Will, what do you think? Who do you lean towards?
Well, I think whenever you're thinking about a defense, whether it's the '85 Bears, the Ravens, when you're thinking about a defense, you're talking about what's the defense that scares you the most? What's the defense that's top heavy? What's the defense that's loaded with players playing at a Hall of Fame level? And just looking at the wine bottle team we have, not to step on any DB toes, but Nick Bosa is the only one that made the team from the 2019 team, and there's definitely. We had, guys like Armstead and Buckner and Sherman and other guys were considered for this, but Bosa was the only one that made it. And we have Justin Smith, Patrick Willis, Navarro Bowman, and Aldon Smith all on this team. So while they didn't have a perfect defense, and there were some spots that maybe weren't as strong, they had strength in all 3 phases of the defense. So you had DBs that just killed people. You had, a defensive line that could create pressure, and you had the best linebacking core in 49ers history. So I think it's hard, especially because you had Aldon Smith and Justin Smith, creating so much havoc that Patrick Willis and Bowman could just do whatever they needed to do. That was a much more intimidating defense to face. And I don't mean to take anything away from the 2019 Niners defense, because when they were at their best, they were really tough to deal with too. But you have a lot of guys now. I mean, you're seeing it now with the lack of depth with some of the injuries. But they had a lot of guys that were just kind of playing over their head because they were brand new to the league, brand new to the team. We're seeing with guys like Warner and some others that they're going to become players. But literally in 2019, they were just starting out. They were just getting their feet wet in the league. So I think the defense in 2012 and that Super Bowl defense especially was so primed and ready to just kill whoever was in front of them. And had they won, it would have been a big part of that would have been the defense.
Absolutely, I like this. I like where this.
Great
is going.
points.
I've got one more battle royale for you guys that we'll save after the cornerbacks, or the secondary. So I'm doing the secondary. This is probably my favorite position. My favorite position to play as a kid was free safety and corner.
Yeah, look who I got right behind me.
I see it.
Your boy.
You got my boy, Dion. Man, Dion and Joe Montana, saddest days in sports history for me when they both left the team. Dion, we flew too close to the sun, and he was gone. He was gone before I could even really get used to him. And I loved Dion. He was the first. I was like 14 at that time, and he was the first guy that he like electrified me. And I remember just him talking in the press conferences about what he was going to do and what he was going to do in the game, and then he would do it. And I was so impressed with that. I was so blown away.
He backed up every ounce of shit talking he dished out.
Every ounce. I just had never seen that. I had never in my life. I remember running up to our dad, unofficial 4th member of the GoldCast, Rudy Solis Jr., and telling him, I go, did you see that? He said last week that he was going to do that in the press conference, and then he did it. He actually did it. I was blown. Like my mind, my 14-year-old mind could not comprehend that someone could call their own shot as accurately as Dion did. It was the coolest experience. I'll never forget just how blown away I was by that. All right, so let's start. First up at corner, we have Eric Wright, 1983 Eric Wright, 80s Eric Wright, not 2000s Eric Wright. His best statistical year was 1983, 7 interceptions for 164 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 fumble recovery. Unfortunately, the stats aren't as in-depth as they get a little bit later on, as you'll see here.
What surprises me about that, sorry to interject, but what bothers me about that is that Eric Wright didn't make the Pro Bowl. Like, how many picks did he need in order to make the Pro Bowl in 83? God, the standards must have been so high in the 80s. Jeez, I was unaware.
I know. Who's the guys that made it? How many interceptions do they have? 20? So there we go. I'm gonna save Dion for last because his is out of control. Next up, I'm going to go with strong safety, Merton Hanks, 1994. I mean, even if you don't know the stats off the top of your head, I feel like most diehard Niner fans who are old enough to remember would probably go, okay, even though I'm not sure what his best year was, but it's probably got to be 94 on that 49ers team. That defense was destruction. He also had 7 interceptions, 93 yards, 2 fumble recoveries, 5 sacks, 7 combined tackles, 65 solo tackles. That is one monster year.
Such a good player. The chicken dance,
that little step he did it was so good. That's always what I remember. When I think of Merton Hanks, I think back to that play.
And he works in the front office now. He's still part of the Niner family.
Still is part of the Niner family. Next up, oh man, the GOAT. If Joe Montana is the ultimate GOAT for the offense, then Ronnie Lott is the GOAT of the defense. I mean, it's probably, you got to probably go, what would you guys say? Would it go Lott, just an overall talent? I'm not talking about longevity or anything. Let's go power rankings. Do we go, is it Lott, Haley, Sanders? It's like the 3 greatest of all time that have ever played on the defense, like just overall talent. Like, obviously Sanders only played 1 year, so I'm not talking about longevity on the Niners. I'm just talking about the greatest to ever wear a 49er uniform and play the game. Is it Lott, Haley, Sanders? Lott, Sanders, Haley?
Defensively?
Defensively.
If you're talking just talent, there's no way you put Haley above Sanders. Because Sanders is, you could easily make the case Sanders is the greatest corner to ever live. And you can also make the case that Lott's the greatest safety to ever live. So Haley is amazing. He's one of my favorite players to ever step on a field. But he's not on that level. Like, he is one of the best pass rushers of all time, which, I mean, so there's no shade on him at all, but he's not Reggie White. You know, he's not by far.
Or Bruce Smith.
Right, and I think you'd have to be Reggie White to get above Lott or Sanders in your power ranking based on what your definition was, which was just who's the most talented who's ever played defense for the Niners.
I like it. Raymond, do you agree? You go that? Is that
I do, yeah. And Sanders, Sanders was maybe Sanders is not he's my favorite corner, but I don't know if he's the best corner. I think he's probably the best cover corner that ever played, the best man-to-man cover corner that ever played the game. But anyways, that's a debate for a different show. Called Deion Sanders the '94 season.
Well, and if you're talking talent too, like I agree with you that it's probably those 3 that would be the top 3. But if you're talking about who's the best talent that ever played for the Niners, that 95 team that had every free agent that was every veteran free agent available, from the Ken Nortons, the Gary Plumbers, the Charles Manns, the Richard Dents, the Kevin Greens, the Tim Harris. I mean, those guys none of them were in their prime except maybe Norton, at that time. But those guys are all Pro Bowlers, Chris Dolman too. I mean, those are all Pro Bowlers that you could absolutely put high on a list like that, because they might not have been in their prime as Niners, but if you're just talking about sheer talent level as a football player, a lot of those guys were, all pros and borderline Hall of Famers, and even a couple of them are Hall of Famers now.
Yeah, Tim McDonald had some fantastic seasons with the Niners, but it just wasn't as legendary as Ronnie Lott's entire career. Right.
Yeah, I mean, so those teams especially were loaded. We're talking just on paper, that 95 team was incredible. The 94-95 era of that Niner defense was just phenomenal.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that too. You guys are skipping ahead just a little bit. We're gonna talk about that at the end here. We are. Let's go through Ronnie Lott's best statistical year, 1986. All right, so 10 interceptions for 134 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 forced fumbles, 2 sacks, 77 combined tackles. They don't have his solo tackles, but at least you get his combined tackles, what I think is really weird. Again, stats they're getting better, but like Eric Wright, they don't even have listed any tackles he had for 83. So he has 77 combined tackles. And then my favorite corner of all time, maybe arguably probably my favorite defensive player of all time, Neon Deion, prime time Deion Sanders. His best year, 94, going back to 94 again, this magic year, 6 interceptions. He returned them for a total of 303 yards, 3 touchdowns. This is a record that holds to this day. This still hasn't been broken.
Has anyone tied
I don't know
pick
if anyone,
sixes?
I don't know if anyone's tied it. I didn't look that. I think it's the 3 touchdowns. I think that's the one that it hasn't been broken yet. 1 fumble recovery. Two of his interceptions were returned for a gain of 90 yards. 2 of those interceptions were 90-yard returns. Man, the guy was a gazelle. He was voted Defensive Player of the Year in 94. He recorded an end zone interception in the fourth quarter at the end of our 5th Super Bowl in the Super Bowl. End zone interception in the fourth quarter in the Super Bowl. I mean, what more can you do? That is just insane. That's just, those numbers are crazy. So here we go. That's my top 3. Eric Wright 83, Merton Hanks 94, Ronnie Lott 86, Deion Sanders 94. And to go through the entire list one more time, on defense at defensive tackle, you have Bryant Young 96, Dana Stubblefield 97. You have Nick Bosa on the end at 2019, Justin Smith on the other at right end at 2011. And the linebacking core, you've got middle linebacker Patrick Willis 09, Navarro Bowman 11. You've got left outside linebacker Charles Haley 1990, right outside linebacker Alden Smith 2012. That is our wine bottle defense. I have one more fun question before we wrap it up, guys. Okay. You've got the big 3, and now I feel like we've already kind of ranked 2019 a little bit, but let's go 2019 versus 2012 versus 94. These 3 defenses. Now, if my dad was here, my dad would probably go, "Don't you forget 84. Don't you leave out 84." But we were all much younger. We were all very, very young for 84. So let's go through the 3 that we all remember the best. Okay, we're not discounting 84. Dad, all right, we're not discounting 84, but let's just go through the 3 we remember the best. So let's go 94, 2012, 19. Who gets the top? Candlestick Will, we started with you first. Ray, I'm going to start with you first. What's your power rankings for these 3 defenses?
Man.
That was a pregnant pause for days right there. That was trying to break it down in his mind. I love it.
That's a tough question.
All right, name the years again.
94. So that's obviously we go to the Super Bowl against the Chargers. 2012, we go against the Ravens. 2019, the Chiefs. All three of our Super Bowl defenses. Who do you choose? Who's the team? Who's the power rankings of the 3? I already know my power rankings.
To me, I think it's. I mean, if I was to get into the weeds, I would. This would be more challenging, and that's where I was starting to go, which is what the pause was from. But when I take a step back, I think I have to just go with the ones. I have to go with the '94 team first because they won it with those stars. And I think they, combined with Dallas, had the most Pro Bowlers in all of football that season. And then for number 2, I'd have to go 2012, just the talent. Again, I think they had, I think 2011 they had 7 Pro Bowlers. In 2012 they had a little bit less than that, but still just as potent of a squad. And then 2019 probably in the 3rd slot.
Candlestick Will, what about you? What do you say?
I feel like I'm going to sound like like the old guy who can't handle the new things, but I'm probably going to go in order of when they happened. So I would probably go 95, 2012, 2019. And I would put 84 above all of them if we're throwing 84 in. So, which again, as I'm saying it, it sounds like I'm like, no, the old era was better, kind of thing. But I mean, there was a big reason. It wasn't just Montana why that team went 15-1. That defense was completely loaded. The 94, 95 era, the only reason they don't have 3 Super Bowls is because the Cowboys were also loaded. And so you have, and it was a team just full of studs and just the best depth they probably ever had because of how many veterans they got on 1-year deals to fill that team out. That even when they lost guys like Richard Dent, it didn't even matter because they had so much other talent out there. The wine bottle season we had was his Defensive Player of the Year season, which was 97.
What was the stats for him what was the stat line for him that season?
15 or 16 sacks. I mean, it was an amazing statistical year for a defensive tackle, especially, which is why he got so much money to go to Washington, because of just how obscene those stats were. He had, I'm pulling it up right now, 15 sacks in 97. But he had
wow,
that's
huge.
In 94, he had 8.5. But 15,
right, as an interior
right.
Defender.
Yeah, I mean, and we're talking about Alden Smith had such a record-breaking year in a lot of ways with his 19.5. But to get 15 from the defensive tackle position, that it's hard enough to get 5 sacks from that spot, let alone 10, let alone 15. So it was funny. I always remember going to a sports card show, and they were selling a Bryant Young autographed 8x10 and a Dana Stubblefield autographed 8x10. And in hindsight, I would have rather had the Bryant Young, but I bought the Dana Stubblefield because he was coming off 15 sacks, and he just looked like he was going to be the better player, because it was just a phenomenal season. It really was, and so it was in that at that moment it felt like a no-brainer. Like Dana Stubblefield's clearly the best of the bunch, but you also, as a teenager, you don't necessarily realize that one of the main reasons that Stubblefield had 15 sacks was that Bryant Young was getting double teamed all the time because he was actually the more dangerous of the two, and that was leading Stubblefield to single coverage and getting to the quarterback whenever he wanted. And it was it's pick your poison, because if you stop double teaming Bryant Young, he would have had 20 sacks. So that defense was so stacked in that era that those two just fed off each other so perfectly.
Yeah, they were like the DeForest Buckner and the Eric Armstead of that era, and they're better than those two guys. Even though Buckner, the Twin Towers only lasted a couple seasons, unfortunately, and one season where they were finally kind of on equal level. And Bryant Young, that was the '96 season, right?
The best season that Young had for the Niners was probably 96, I would say, but he was still dominant in 97. I actually look at the Eric Armstead Buckner tandem similar in the same way that Eric Armstead had that big year last year, which ended up making the Niners decide to keep him over Buckner, but Buckner was really probably the better of the two. And so Buckner was the Bryant Young that didn't necessarily have the stats, but actually, if you really think about it and look at the performances, he was the one that was actually more dangerous. But Armstead benefited more from that relationship on the field with the stats, and so it was. And you don't want to have to lose either one of them, but the Niners made the decision to keep Armstead, and I think what they did was they kept Stubblefield and got rid of Bryant Young. But that doesn't necessarily mean that was a terrible decision, but I do think that Buckner of the two was the more valuable overall player.
Yeah, it was a tough one because I thought that Armstead had a long injury history leading up to that year. The last 2 seasons he's been great. He's finally kind of come out of that weird funk where he just got injured every season and kind of derailed his own progress. And the season before his Pro Bowl season, DeForest Buckner had 12 sacks with no help on the line, which is really impressive on his end. And ended up with like 6.5, 7 the next season when he had Bosa, Ford, and Armstead all playing at the same level. But yeah, I'm surprised. I don't think they tracked TFLs, in the 90s, because in Bryant Young's 99 season, which was slightly not as good as his 96 season, he still had 11 sacks, but he also had 19 TFLs. Crazy TFL stat for Bryant Young. But that's exactly what you want out of an interior defender. Stuff those run holes.
Well, and tackles for losses is so much harder from a defensive tackle position too, because you're not necessarily getting up the field very often. So if you're getting a tackle for loss from a running back, it's because you made a perfect play, because usually you're just stuffing a guy for no yards, which isn't a tackle for loss. So if you're getting a running back behind the line of scrimmage, you're creating insane havoc quickly, because usually if a running back's getting a 4 or 5 yard loss, it's because of a defensive end or an outside linebacker, on the edge, not because of an interior lineman. So an interior lineman's only going to get a tackle for loss because of a sack, which doesn't happen very often, or because of a running back and just hitting that hole perfectly. So to have double-digit tackles for losses as a defensive tackle is similar to an edge rusher getting double-digit sacks.
Totally.
Nice, guys. Well, that was awesome, and I'm pretty happy with this team. Very, very well done. Good job. Candlestick Will was really the main architect behind both the offense and the defense. I think he did a great job, and thanks to everybody who participated on Twitter and put in their vote for who they thought they should see.
Well, hey, wait. We got to throw. You threw us a wrench with Bill Walsh, and what's the coach? Well, who's the defensive coordinator?
Oh, give us our choices, Candlestick Will.
I just thought of it, so I'm not. I don't.
Impromptu.
I'm thinking yeah, Pete Carroll,
Seifert, Fangio.
You had Seifert. You had Fangio.
Seifert, Fangio, Sala.
And you can throw in Sala because of the 19 team. So, is there? I would just off the top of my head, I would go Seifert. I think that defense was very underrated in those years. Not Montana and Rice always got the attention, but the defense was always keeping them in games throughout the time. So I'd probably pick Seifert, but Pete Carroll's teams were phenomenal, and so were Fangio's.
I would go Fangio. I think he was just so creative.
I'm gonna go. Oh, sorry. Finish your blurb. Why do you pick Fangio? Because I think he was kind of a straightforward defensive coordinator. I don't think there was anything fancy about him, but maybe you saw something different.
Yeah, I just like what he. Yeah, I mean, he was straightforward, but he was just so good. He was so good. I think he's better than Saleh. Saleh's fair. Saleh gets fairly creative, but I think what he was able to do with those defenses and the way he was able to scheme week in and week out and just take away whatever any offense was good at, he'd make you play left-handed every single week in and week out. He was just the best at that. He was the best at being able to take whatever you were good at and take it away. And whereas like the 94 team, it's hard to know, man. I mean, there's like literally nothing but an all-star crew. The three of us might be able to go out there and coach and to be the same exact thing,
I'm gonna go Seifert because he won it. He won it as a defensive coordinator and then won it again as a head coach. So to me, that's kind of what sealed the deal for me.
It's a good argument. What about you? What do you think, Candlestick Will? Who you go with?
Yeah, I'm going Seifert. I think he ended up being underrated as a head coach because no one could live up to the standard that Bill Walsh set. And I remember feeling like maybe Holmgren should have gotten the job over him, and I think Seifert was in almost an identical position as Steve Young, as good luck winning 4 Super Bowls like Walsh, good luck winning 4 Super Bowls like Montana, and Seifert kept them right in there, year after year. And just like we were saying before, if it wasn't for the Cowboys being slightly better on those days, those two games, they could have easily been 3-time champs with Seifert like that, and ended up with 4 Super Bowls themselves.
I mean, Holmgren only won 1 championship, so it might have been the same result had he taken over as the head coach. I think the only one where you make kind of an argument as to what if is Mike Shanahan.
Yeah, definitely. That was always my dad's vote.
Mike Shanahan and Pete Carroll both being with the Niners, and among Dennis Green and Ray Rhodes. I mean, their talent tree was always
playoff
phenomenal.
caliber coaches. They all went to the playoffs.
So what say you, GoldCast Nation? Who do you choose for your wine bottle team? Let us know in the comments. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast and let us know who would you choose for your wine bottle? Do you agree with our list? Are there some other players we haven't thought of? Let us know. And then also, what are your power rankings? 84, 94, 12, 19. Where do all these rankings stand? Who do you rank? Who do you list and why? Maybe you put 94 above 84 just for the sheer amount of all-stars, all Pro Bowlers that were on there. Who knows? The legends. Who knows? Let us know. Go to youtube.com/thegoldcast. And so concludes another edition of the GoldCast. We are the voice of the Bay. I'm your host, Rudy Solis III, and with me is my brother, my co-host,
Raymond Solis the first, baby.
And our esteemed co-host,
Candlestick Will.
Boom! We'll see you next time. Same GoldCast time, same GoldCast channel.